Summertime? Oh, sure.
Actually smelling all over.
So you know how to record it. Cyan and Gavin. Gavin, where you at? All right. So today's kind of an important day because it's sort of your first step in the backside.
Okay, this is not.
I'll start.
Wait, Mr. Lawrence.
Hold on.
Right, one of those pieces of paper too.
I don't know. Where am I going? Do you need to go like right now?
What's it up?
9:35. 9:35. All right, go.
Well, that was.
Yeah, where do I go? I don't know.
Just roam around?
The office until they do stuff. All right. Sorry about the false start. Today is a very important day, sort of like the first step in what will become our formal writing revision process. You'll be doing a lot of this kind of stuff where you're building MLA-cited either research papers or argumentative papers. You submit them to a team, so you guys are actually going to be reading each other's work today. You're going to be spell checking each other, so that's the first step. And then beyond that, you're going to be questioning their assumptions. You're going to be discussing some of their ideas and even their evidence, yes? And then at that point, as you're questioning them, I'm going to see that. I'm going to see it, the rough draft with someone's peer edit, and I'm going to read it as well with some of those concepts to see if you guys are interacting with it. I know this assignment, well, I should say, how many of you guys felt like really confused about this assignment? Like, you're like, I don't know if I did a really good job. Right.
No.
Cool. That's kind of the point. So the point of it was that I wanted you to make connections, or at least attempt to struggle to make connections to something that you wouldn't otherwise make connections to. The idea of healthcare, for instance, doesn't seem to have a whole lot of crossover with the stuff in world literature. So I wanted us to start with something very relevant and with a very specific idea that I wanted you to defend or refute. So if you remember the assignment itself, sort of its big question at the end of I think it was topic 3, I had you do some stuff on connecting or just telling me a little bit about the changes to healthcare that have occurred over the last 2 or 3 years now, the struggle as well as the implementation, all that kind of stuff. So to kind of learn or to get yourself up to date on the idea that there's differences, there's new industries, or I should say there's changing industries as a result of the Healthcare Act that had been put into place these last few years. I also wanted you to look at how this connects to the way in which we advertise or tell people about healthcare, or how we explain why it is good to be healthy, or any number of those things that at least the proponents of the ACA, the changes to the healthcare, were attempting to show that it's good to have these types of things. Now, right now, I don't really care if you like the ACA or you think it's a good measurement. I want you to look at it objectively. What are the ways in which they are attempting to show that you are healthier as a result of it? The third point was a very basic one. This is where you can start making that basic argument. It's right here. Should people be forced to live healthy? The answer is yes, or the answer is no, right? Now, I'm forcing you into a dichotomy, right, that might not actually exist. And we'll talk about some of those limitations in a moment. I'm just trying to get you to think on your feet a little bit about this with that assignment. Make you struggle a little bit with it. Right now, what we're going to walk through, I'm going to review the, so I kind of reviewed the prompt, but I'll review it more formally with each team. So I'll be going through that while you guys answer these questions together. Very simple, basic stuff. I want you to just go around and say, should you be forced to live healthy, yes or no? Maybe give a few reasons why from your own writing. Summarize that argument. And find similarities in the way in which you develop that. What are some of those agreements or disagreements you have about that, okay? You'll also then read each other's work, so then you'll swap papers and actually read their work and see if you can attempt to just peer edit it for content. So just by spelling, or I didn't really understand what you mean by this, I don't get this part, you can write questions to them. What do you mean by this? I don't understand this. Is this really accurate? Whatever you want to say with that. I want to see your ability to do these kinds of things on your own without any prompting. Yes, I could give you a worksheet. Yes, I could have walked you through this whole step by step. I want to see what you can do now on your own. So go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to give you about 6-7 minutes. If it seems like you guys are doing really good, I can give you more time than that. But usually that's about the time that people sort of trail off and need some change. So 6 minutes to talk about these three things, okay? Finding similarities in your arguments and whether or not you should be forced to live healthy. Go! Alright, you've had a couple minutes to discuss this question with your team. Some of the things that I heard, I just want to kind of quickly debrief on this so that we're all thinking on these. And in fact, if you can, I don't know if you need it on a separate sheet of paper or something like that, but I want to give you a few sort of summary points that I want you, when you're done peer editing, to do one last debriefing on those points here. Yes?
Okay, who said people should be forced to live healthy?
No one. Wait, who else?
No one.
Really?
Okay, what's up? I'm sorry.
There's only 2 people in here.
Oh, okay. So were you guys secretly bifurcating the class just now, saying like, oh, who's on one side? We want to do a debate. That's great.
That's like 2 people against the whole class.
Now it's 3. I think there's. So this, I want to say kind of on the outset that even though I forced you guys into a yes/no, that's more to just generate the conversation. I don't want to necessarily do formal debate. I'm going to leave that to your history classes. I think English is a little bit more nuanced, so we're going to talk in a couple different ways. Some of the points that I heard from people was kind of the big one was choice. Go ahead and write that down. Choice. What is choice? That word seems to elicit positive or negative connotations. Choice. Is it positive or negative to have choice? Is it okay? And is it always positive that you have choice? Is it always positive that you have choice? So you're all pro-choice, is what I'm hearing right here. Yeah. All right. So there's ideas already. I hope that some of you are seeing that a little bit without me spelling completely out for you. So that's the first thing I heard, is everyone saying whether or not choice is a important thing. It's sort of a supreme idea or concept, right? So you have choice in your healthcare. I also heard people say the opposite of choice would be something like banning. So like So another word would be like banning foods, or limiting your behavior, or you know what I mean, like, or forcing you to go places or to do things. So these are some of the ideas that I heard. So choice on one end versus forcing on the other, or forcing or banning, these kinds of things. And for sure, those would be a lot of concern when it comes to how people live their lives, right? We don't necessarily like the idea of being forced. At the same time, I also heard people in their conversations, whether they were for or against it, say things like, I don't have the, people don't have time to work. So there's a time issue. There was also other constraints like money. So time and money regarding health. So how time and money affect health would be another point that I want you guys to consider again in your summary. If you're poor or you have lots going on, are you more likely to be healthy or unhealthy? And I'm thinking in particular this country. I don't necessarily look at outside because it's limited, right? We're looking at the Affordable Care Act, some of the ideas that affect us as future career path health people, right? Whatever that is. Health employees, healthcare industry people, right? So time and money and how that affects health. Okay? So those are the three things that I noticed in your guys' conversations. A lot of those all kind of came up in whether or not it is good to have people lead healthy lives in some sort of moderated, forced way. I use the word force on purpose to kind of elicit, again, a high interest. You don't always have to call it force, though. There's other ways. And so some of the pushback, or at least some of the extended ideas that I suggested specifically to them, is whether or not there is choice always. Is choice a pure thing? Or are we kind of bound and constrained naturally by where we are, how much money we have, what time we can spend on things, etc. I also want you to think about not just banning things at the consumer end, but think about the whole food process, or the whole exercise process, or the whole healthcare process, the whole psychiatric process, whatever the health industry that you're interested in. Does it happen just at the end in which a consumer is paying money for his healthcare, or is there a whole process that goes into it? So that's the last thing I want you to write down. Is the whole healthcare process, whatever that might be. Is there ways in which that might change your view, either for or against the proposition? Okay. So, choice versus being forced, time and money affecting healthcare, and the whole health process. So these are simple things. Now, what I'd like you guys to do is, since you've already done the finding similarities and you summarized your argument, I want you to peer edit your work. Look at it now. See if it seems to make sense at all from your perspective after having this conversation. This isn't the final thing. I know there's still things like we didn't talk about how Aristotle even fits in the mix, right? You all probably thinking like, what the heck, right? Why are we talking about world literature stuff? We'll get to that. So right now, just peer edit, see what you can do with your current knowledge. All right, I'm going to give you only like 5-6 minutes for that. So very, very quickly reading their work, asking them questions, writing down those questions on their paper.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of interesting.
All right, well, turn on the lights, please. It's kind of dark.
Yeah.
I feel better with the lights on. Just a little bit. Yeah, you can actually see now, yeah? Not going to fall asleep. Okay, give you about 1 more minute. Let's go ahead and finish up whatever you got here. I know you might be wanting to really work through it.
Right here. How do you think you said this? Yeah.
Don't let yourself say by me. You should have. It should be working.
Where do you think we're
But it's not.
Yeah.
Collaborating.
All right. We have about 7 minutes left. Feel free to continue plugging away at that. Kind of do a quick multitask though, because I do want to. I want to summarize sort of the second group here. As you've read somebody else's work, you might still be kind of like, I don't understand those first two prompts when I asked about Aristotle's On Rhetoric. So I'm going to kind of briefly go over those, and that might help clarify for when you get your papers back. And I will be writing some notes, giving you some even further evidence. This is going to be slow. It's going to be a revision process this summertime. You're going to turn them back into me after revising them. We'll do one more revision round. Okay, so then after that, you'll be completing a final draft. So this will be your second rough draft that you're giving to me your summer assignment. The first rough draft is into me now. There'll be a second one at a future date. Real quick, some of these ideas, I've already had you write them down, and I literally just wrote these down because these are things that you brought up. It wasn't things that I prepared to talk about. It was just ideas that you guys had. The importance of choice versus the problem of banning or limiting goods and services. If you want people to be healthy, do you want to do it by limiting choice? Or is there inherent problems when you ban people from doing stuff? It seems to be bad. It seems to be un-American. Number two, how time and money affect healthcare decisions and outcomes already. Whether you have enough time to go work out, whether people have enough money to buy the healthy foods as opposed to the bad snack foods, that might be an inherent constraint that's already limiting number one, right? Your problems with choice. So there's some new ways to think about this that you might not have thought in the past. Number three, the whole health process itself, not just on the consumer end. Is there something that Doritos could do to make Doritos taste as good but not be as nasty for you? Maybe there's some type of compromise we can make. Do we, and maybe not just for like being fat or not, but maybe something like making sure that you don't get poisoned or sick. Are there safety standards? How many of you guys like the fact that we have safety standards on our foods? Okay, does that limit your choice to eat unsafe foods? Kind of, it does, huh? So there's some type of middle road. It's not a yes or no is what I'm saying. So try to get out of that. And I forced it on you to tell you how inadequate it really is when we think about stuff from an English perspective. That is, from how we relate arguments. This is how people think about it. And caricatures are a great idea to convey emotion, a certain pathos, as it suggested with Aristotle. It feels a certain way. Gosh, this is what people see when they look at you guys who will be in the healthcare profession. There's people out there who feel like, and I feel that way sometimes when I talk to doctors, don't you? When you go there and they're like telling you things, well, you got to do this, that, and the other. You're like, well, who are you? This is my life, you know? One of the classic, an example that I remember recently is I went to an allergist because my son has got egg allergy. We were testing it out. So he brought in an egg thing and we put it in his mouth. I couldn't see anything, but the allergist, who probably sees people die of allergies all the time, thought she saw something. So instantly, she's like going to get this big syringe to go stick in my son. I was like, excuse me, he looks okay to me. Can we just hold on? She's like, no, you got to do this. There's a little bit there. He could die right now. You're going to just stab my son with something like an EpiPen that's going to cause his heart rate to go crazy. Just because you think you might see something. She's like, yeah, he's going to suffocate. It's like, well, wait, I've never seen him suffocate. So there's like this whole back and forth with authority. And we ended up letting him have the EpiPen because she's the doctor. She had a certain level of ethos, right? She had this authority over me based on her knowledge of it. So I let her have it. I limited my choice to say no to that, right? But you notice, what is this in connection to? This isn't an EpiPen. What is this? When people are talking about uncertain safety, erosion of parents' rights, corruption. What is that argument? What do we give our kids so that they don't get sick? Vaccines. No, there's people that don't like vaccines. People who don't let their kids have it. So when we're talking about choice, it might not always even be adults making that choice. I mentioned that to you guys. Maybe it's about children as well. So how do we manage the fact that children might be placed in unsafe situations? So that's something else to think about. Also, recently there was the healthcare debate in the Supreme Court, the Hobby Lobby case. When you talk about choice, it seemed like everyone liked choice, except sometimes there's people who limit that choice or think it's important to allow other people to choose to limit other people's choice regarding, let's say, women's reproductive rights, something like that, reproductive health care, birth control, whether birth control should be covered or allowed, mandated to be covered, forcing health care on people. Do they like it or not? It depends, religiously, otherwise. There's different types of ethos and logos that people are using in order to justify their actions. So real quick, if you don't have an understanding of ethos, pathos, logos, make sure you understand this. So write this in your little page of notes that you're going to keep the next couple of weeks as you're walking through these summer assignments. The ethos is your argument. Okay, it's the way, and it's based on authority. So ethos is like how I justify my argument. Pathos is its emotions, and logos is its facts. So the ethos is based on a character. Pathos is based on how that character feels and makes you feel. And logos is how they do it. What are the facts that they do? This is how everything in life is communicated. And this is how all writing is. And now you know a little bit more about it so that you can make better decisions. You know people are trying to control these things. So for instance, a particular logos. Our health ranking is low in this country in terms of health outcomes, but our spending is high. That's a certain fact that people use to justify certain healthcare decisions. Obama went on between two ferns because not enough people were signing up, young people, so what does he do? He creates an ethos, an authority based on the celebrity of Zach Gallivan, an actor, right? And all of a sudden, people started signing up. All because he went on between two ferns and said, you guys should all sign up. And all of a sudden, people signed up. So interesting ways in which people are manipulated, or I should say just persuaded, is a more neutral word, to do something. All right, you guys are good. I'm sorry to hold you over. I just wanted to get those two things out. And lastly, if we've got those little kids there, another pathos for you. Don't deny me. Are you going to deny me? Pathos, right? Pathos. Yes, turn in summer assignments, please. I would love to read them.
We all know how bad dark is. That double negative.
See you guys tomorrow. Let's see what's going on tomorrow. Oh, subtract seminars. Be thinking about.
This is today.
That's Thursday. Be thinking about why we study world literature. I have some questions for you on Monday. I want you to work through them. Why do we study the past? Is it worthless or not?
Why do you think I'm so good at this?
Choice.